Nice. So we are talking about this article that came out, and this article essentially is about this university professor Amy Wax from the University of Pennsylvania, who said that America would be a lot better with less Asians and less Asian immigration. Um, all right, here's my opinion on this. All right, everybody in this country are immigrants. She's a product of immigration. Everybody except for the Native Americans, except for the red ones, are products of immigration. All right. I know a lot of people want to say the red man was from somewhere else 15,000 years ago, but that's like 15,000 years ago. That's like saying the Irish or the English or the Germans were from somewhere else 15,000 years ago, which they were. They probably all came from the Middle East. But she was doing some kind of interview with another person, and this came out, and obviously her comments drew a lot of a lot of controversy. And I read the article, and I did not watch the interview she was doing with another colleague, I think, but it seemed to me that she had a thing against South Asians. She kind of lumped all Asians in one group, like South Asians, East Asians. She kind of lumped everybody in one group. So apparently her comments are, it's just harder to assimilate those people, meaning Asians, or to have confidence that our way of life will continue if we bring a lot of people in who are not familiar with it. So these are not original ideas on our political right, she says. And she told that to Loury, who is an African American. And this interview did not occur recently. It occurred sometime in December. Here's my thoughts on this. It's insanely ridiculous, her presumption. All right, I think this country should have so many more Asian Americans. All right, it's because Asian Americans are the greatest people in this country, and I mean that. Better than the whites, better than the blacks, so much better than the blacks, but a lot better than the whites, better than everybody else. All right, better than everybody else, and that's a fact. All right, and that's not a prejudicial fact, because if you go down the list of statistics, all the good statistics you see. All right, and I'm not saying that all Asian people are good people. I've come across some crappy Asian people before, like everybody else. but I will say that if you guys did a pound per pound analysis of all the different races, Asian Americans are the greatest race in this country, and that's an absolute fact. Fact number two is there was always prejudicial immigration. There was always some form of prejudicial immigration. All right, they've tried keeping Asian Americans out. They tried that. There should be a gazillion Asian Americans in this country in the same numbers as Irish Americans, German Americans, English Americans, all these Euro Americans who make up, 70% of the population. There should be. I've always felt that the whole population of this country should be broken up with a quota system where there's an equal amount of, Euro Americans, white people, African American, black people, Asian Americans, and Latino Americans. It should be broken up into, if there was ever fair immigration in this country, that's what it should look like. However, there's never been a fair immigration policy. And because of that, I think they should do the right thing and pretty much just bring in as many Asian Americans as they can just to even out the population of America. Now, here's the thing with how a lot of people feel about Asian Americans, and I'm talking about a lot of people in general, like whites and blacks. They look at Asian Americans as a threat. All right, for the last 25 years, they pretty much used the media to pretty much stifle Asian American growth in the culture of this country, in the social parameters of this country. They've actually used the media to stifle Asian American growth. Now, a lot of these people can't do that anymore as a result of SJWs, as a result of social media, as a result of cancel culture. They can't do that anymore because they used to, every time they would put a negative representation or a racist stereotypical representation in the media, and I'm saying that they did this all the time, okay? That was pretty much the norm from 1995 to 2017, right before cancel culture took hold. All right, every time they put a negative Asian image up, and most of the time it's a negative image of an Asian male, Asian American male, all right, it essentially stifled the Asian American brand. That's what it did. It stifled the Asian American brand. All right, there should be, if everything was based on merit, and not race, all right, Asian Americans would pretty much be at the top of government. You would see a ridiculous amount of Asian Americans in the government, a ridiculous amount of Asian Americans in Hollywood, because essentially over the last 25 years, the whites, the blacks, and the Jews have pretty much stolen, have pretty much appropriated Asian American culture for their own benefit, while just absolutely negatively branding Asian Americans as a whole. It was, I actually consider that period, the 2.5 decades, as pretty much a racial, cultural, terroristic hate crime. That's how I essentially characterize that period from 1995 to 2007. A cultural, terroristic, under the radar hate crime against Asian Americans by whites, blacks, and Jews. Essentially, all right, because there should have been, the first minority president should have been somebody who, was of merit, not because of the color of the skin, but was of merit. All right, there should, and on that note, I will say that it probably should have been some Latino also, because they were the largest minority since 2000. That's 2 decades ago. And yet, after 2 decades, Latino Americans are now just beginning to get the representation that they deserve for being the second largest population in this country. All right. But going back to what she was saying about how Asian Americans predominantly vote Democrat because they actually follow the crowd. All right, whatever the majority culture of the crowd is what they follow. But here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. Right, like every other race in this country. All right, we're gonna keep it real. All right, they're gonna look at certain parameters, social parameters, cultural parameters of what is more beneficial towards us, because that's how people vote majority of the time. All right, Obama got elected because they voted for him because of his race. Let's all be serious. He got elected twice because of his race. Most black people voted for him because he was black, and a bunch of brainwashed white people voted for him because it was a feel-good story. Like they were giving something back to black people that they took away because of slavery. All right, let's all be serious about that. Nobody voted for Obama because, oh, he had potential to be a great leader out of all the candidates. All right. I'm just gonna be honest about that. I didn't vote for anybody. I am not a voter. I have never considered the want to vote in this country for whatever, local government, the American government for the greater masses, president, vice president, what have you. Okay, I have never considered, because it doesn't. I'm not a political person. All right, I don't look at this as something that is political. All right, when you break down how certain people vote, you know, if you keep it real, you know why they vote, particularly in the modern era. All right, they'll vote because of what these politicians, or what they think these politicians would, how much they could get help, or how much their policies benefit the population. But here's the thing, all right? I don't see how she could get away with saying something like this, considering Asian Americans are the greatest Americans that this country has ever had. The greatest. There has never been another group of Americans that are that have tried to live the American dream that Asian Americans have. Except for maybe the Latinos. They're very hardworking people too. All right? But this whole thing, all right, feels to me like she's scapegoating. Like she's scapegoating certain groups. All right, and they did that, right around 95-ish to 2017. They could scapegoat certain groups and get away with it. They can't do it at this point because of cancel culture, because of SJWs, because of because of the culture that we live in at this point, because of social media. All right. She can't try to scapegoat certain people. What she wants is she wants there to be more Republican Asian Americans, is what she wants. She wants there to be more Republican Asian Americans. I don't know what the stats are as far as the demographics are concerned. I think she's saying this, but I'll take it on her word that a lot of Asian Americans vote Democrat. I don't know, but let's just read this. I have great respect for George Lee and his effort to preserve the admissions requirement for exam high schools in New York City, and I have joined him in the cause, but I think it's too optimistic about the influence of Asians and Asian immigrants. I don't know why she calls Asian Americans are as American as anybody else. It's just, does she call white people Europeans? Does she call African Americans just Africans? I think that should just change. Although Lee is right that Asians vary in their political view as to all groups, the important and often overlooked question is how many. Numbers matter a lot. The case of Asians in the U.S., the overwhelming majority vote Democrat. In my opinion, the Democratic Party is a promiscuous influence and force in our country today that advocates for wokeness, demands equal outcomes despite clear individual and group differences, which I kind of agree with. But here's the deal with that. All right, you gave black people for the last 25 years free stuff for a good 25 years. For a good 25 years, you're still giving black people free stuff, just to make up for slavery, because of the color of their skin. Black people are not the biggest victims in this country. All right, neither are Jewish people. The biggest victims of this country are Native Americans. They're the red man, and you guys haven't even given anything to them over the last 25 years, even in any context of what you've taken away from them. But you gave it to the blacks for the last 25 years. So here's the thing. If you're okay with giving to black people all this free stuff because of the color of their skin, what makes you think that other people aren't wanting of that? Okay, what would keep other people who are wanting of that, all the free stuff you give, just because of their race, just because they tell you that they're victimized, just because they use the media to brainwash you? What gives you the right to think that you could exclude other people from wanting the same thing? All right, and for her to say, for her to scapegoat Asian Americans on that, I'm just gonna say that's part of democracy. All right, if you guys don't like that, then you guys need to change. You guys need to change the whole governmental system. All right, to some kind of totalitarian system then, because there is a major flaw in democracy, if you guys want to see it that way, that allows for other people, other ideas to overwhelm other ideas if certain parameters are taken by those people. If they have more money, if they have more of a will to do it, if they have control over certain segments of the popular of the culture, like of the media, it allows for any group with enough funding, any group with enough protests, boycotts, any group with enough allies in the industry to overtake, whatever dogma of social dogma that exists. It can be overtaken, even if it can be overtaken where communism can actually not, if enough people decided that communism is their way of life, and if they push it enough in a democratic society, there's a chance that they'll take out the entirety of the whole democratic society. It's a flaw in the system, guys. All right? It's the flaw in the system. You need to stop trying to scapegoat people when it comes to that. Admit that there is an absolute flaw in the system. You either live with it or you change it. All right, you can't, go and scapegoat people and say this is the way it should be. But we're living in a society where everybody has a voice now, where everybody has a voice that has influence. This is the American dream. And this is an American dream of free speech for everybody, free speech for everybody when it matters most, because that free speech has an influence. All right? That's part of the Constitution, freedom of speech. That's part of democracy. All right, and it's a sad thing that people can't see that. That's if you look at that as a flaw, then you got to change the system, because that's just part of the system. And there's nothing you can do about it at this point, because social media exists. It will always exist. It's just the way America is, it's just the way the world is at this point. Social media dictates. It does.